For many people, this single shot was a historic event the likes of which they'd never seen before, but for me, the sensation felt oddly familiar.
Understood.
No, it wasn't from this.
Jean's not here.
Not
Okay,
that
was
one
a brilliant
either.
trick, Doom.
Ah, now that's more like it. This is it. Sonic the Comic issue 100 is my favourite single issue of any comic ever, and I'd like to take a moment to explain why this issue, something I've reread so many times that it's falling apart, I mean, look at it, is so important to me. To truly understand the impact of issue 100, we need a crash course in Sonic the Comic's history and format. This was a British comic that came out every fortnight. Yes, we got artwork this good, that regularly. Like other UK comics, including 2000 AD, each issue contained 4 short stories that were between 5 and 7 pages long apiece. For the first year or so, you could argue the book was more Sega the Comic than Sonic the Comic, featuring strips for Echo the Dolphin, Streets of Rage stories penned by Mark Miller, yes, that one, and, Marco's Magic Football? Really? Okay. As the book went on, the other Sega properties were largely replaced by more Sonic stories featuring other cast members. They didn't really interconnect or influence each other. The most you'd often get is someone saying, "Where's Tails?" and an editor's note telling you to check out another story in the same issue for the details. In most cases, you could completely skip something like Zone Runner and the Flock if you just wanted to read Sonic stuff. Although, you'd be missing out on some amazing comics if you did. In discontinuity, Robotnik secured an early victory, becoming the dictator of Mobius as soon as issue 9. This forced Sonic and his friends underground, where they became freedom fighters, not dissimilar to Sat AM or the Archie books. There were major events. The Chaos Emeralds were introduced, Knuckles was brought into the fray, and a lot of Sonic the Comic specific lore was developed, but the one constant was Robotnik's rule over the planet. That remained the status quo for 91 issues across 3.5 years before issue 100 came in and triumphantly changed all of that. You could argue the seeds for issue 100 were being planted as early as issue 53. At the end of the comic's amazing adaptation of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, something I'd love to talk about sometime by the way, Sonic evacuates the residents of the Emerald Hill Zone to the floating island. There, they start a new life in the Mushroom Hill Zone. Finding the Emerald Hill folk quickly becomes one of Robotnik's biggest priorities and longest-running frustrations. This wouldn't be paid off until issue 97. Yes, 44 issues and almost 2 years later, when Knuckles, who's returned to the floating island after a very long journey we don't have time to go into right now, finds Mushroom Hill has been attacked by Robotnik and an echidna named Zachary, who, again, we don't have time to talk about right now, but might feature in a future video. Robotnik has kidnapped the Emerald Hill folk and plans to turn them into a biological computer. Despite Knuckles' best efforts to save the day, the situation looks pretty hopeless. Likewise on Mobius, Tails is down while Amy and Johnny are cornered by Robotnik's forces with seemingly no way out. How will any of them survive? Where's Sonic during all of this? To get those answers, we need to go back around 9 months to the publication of issue 80. The other major player in issue 100's events is Supersonic. I've talked about this guy at length before, but the TLDR is that Supersonic is treated more like a Jekyll and Hyde or Hulk transformation. All powerful, but also kind of just a tad psychotic and uncontrollable. Issue 80 starts Running Wild, an arc that ushers in a major shift for the character. After Supersonic attacks the Freedom Fighters, Amy, Tails, and Johnny Lightfoot manage to send the Golden Demon to the Special Zone, splitting Sonic and his yellow counterpart into 2 separate characters. Not being able to leave the Special Zone at Supersonic's mercy, Sonic goes dimension hopping to confront his evil doppelganger. When it becomes clear that Sonic can't win, he decides to trap Supersonic in the Omniviewer, a multi-dimensional and insanely powerful sentient monitor. Yeah, you heard that right, this book is all sorts of amazing and crazy. The problem is, the Omniviewer was also kind of Sonic's ticket home, trapping the Hedgehog in the Special Zone. As issue 86 ends, Charmy B notices Supersonic seems to have moved over the course of the past week or so, but decides not to tell anyone because he thinks he'll get yelled at. He gets chewed out anyway when the other members of Chaotix catch on. This leads into issue 89, where the team decide to trap Supersonic, and by extension the Omniviewer, inside the Black Asteroid. Fast forward to issue 97, oh hello again, where a recurring villain called Lord Sidewinder is continuing his quest to find and control Supersonic. As two suns appear in the sky, the Omniviewer, who's supposed to be acting as Supersonic's prison cage right now, appears bearing terrible news. TLDR, Supersonic is turning the Black Asteroid into a bomb. There's some nice characterization and conflict here. In the previous issue, Sonic had received an urgent distress call from the floating island. He hates living in the Special Zone, and has been itching to get back to Mobius for pretty much a year of real-time publication at this point. And now the Omniviewer's here, the Hedgehog has the option of leaving. His first instinct is to go home and prioritise his friend's safety. I really appreciate how Sonic's depicted in these comics. He's arrogant, cocky, he quips like he's Nightwing or Spider-Man in battle, and there's always a smirk on his face. He really embodies that 90s attitude of the marketing campaigns. Even better, it regularly gets him into trouble, causes him to rush in blindly, or even make the wrong call. He can be incredibly impatient and impulsive, which, considering his physical abilities and speed, makes a lot of sense. If this Sonic was in Forces, he'd probably be genuinely annoyed that the Resistance couldn't win without him, especially with characters like Shadow around. He'd berate them for it and respond with a, "looks like I have to do everything myself." I get the impression he's frustrated with the position he's forced into because of Robotnik's reign. I don't think Sega's mandates would allow for such a flawed yet relatable version of the character if the comic was still running today. Anyway, Lord Sidewinder is going to use the explosion to control Supersonic, so our blue boy decides to stick around the Special Zone for now and deal with the immediate threat. Meanwhile, Vector and Omniviewer learn that the explosion will cause an electromagnetic pulse that will knock out technology on a planet-wide scale. Omniviewer makes Sonic aware of the electromagnetic pulse, but also of Robotnik's plan to turn the Emerald Hill folk into a biological computer. Realising they can kill two birds with one stone, the Omniviewer teleports both Sonic and the Black Asteroid to Mobius, finally bringing us into issue 100. Here we go. When I think of this book, I think of the words glorious, triumphant, celebratory. I can't tell you how many times I've watched a movie or TV series where they've said, "oh, it all leads to this," and then they've fumbled the execution or not delivered. This nails that. It has all led to this, and it is a ride. For the first time, the entire book is used to tell a single story. All of the regular artists and writers team up in a relay race that's incredibly satisfying to take in. This is an all-star victory lap of a book that sends chills down my spine even now. That said, it's also not perfect, and I'm not above criticising Sonic the Comic issue 100. So what actually happens in this issue? As you'd imagine, Supersonic bursts out of his prison in the skies over Mobius, setting off that electromagnetic pulse that simultaneously saves Johnny and Amy from Vermin the Cybernik, while also disabling Robotnik's computer on the floating island. Problem is, Supersonic's free. Now, Nigel Kitching had written himself into a bit of a corner here, and this is a gripe I'll come back to, but Supersonic had been built up to be practically invincible. The gang have tried teleporting him away, locking him in an asteroid, and even going toe-to-toe with him before. How's Sonic supposed to win here? He doesn't. Instead, the electromagnetic pulse also affects Supersonic, depowering him. Yeah, over a year of publication and a good 20 issues of build-up, for what honestly feels like a bit of a cop-out, truth be told. Thankfully, the issue soon course corrects. Knuckles and the Emerald Hill folk take a stand against Robotnik on the floating island. A fight breaks out between Knuckles and Zachary, but is interrupted by Sonic's arrival via Omniviewer. I love Sonic and Knuckles' banter back and forth here. They nailed the characterization of these two, and it was always a joy to read them together. Crucially, Robotnik is cornered and finally captured. I kind of love what comes next. Sonic is such a showman that he parades Robotnik through the center of the city hall. Hey look, we finally got him! He is loving this, and even Robotnik's asking the Blue Blur to stop rubbing his victory in his face. This is 100% the Sonic I grew up with. I adore everything about this. The comic cuts away from the celebrations to show us an amnesiac Supersonic being taken in by a kindly old lady. Again, we'll come back to this as the biggest misstep of potentially the entire series, but I sort of already talked about it in my Supersonic is Evil videos way back. No, the celebrations are interrupted proper by Grimer, Robotnik's assistant. Think British Snively and you're pretty much there. He's got a steam-powered mechanical monstrosity which, of course, wasn't impacted by the electromagnetic pulse. With it, Robotnik's able to escape. Now we've got a frustrated Sonic zooming through town in search of his arch-nemesis. He didn't come this close only to lose now. In another example of just understanding the character perfectly, Sonic figures out Robotnik probably fled through the sewers to his main base of operations, but not wanting to ruin his shoes, Sonic takes the front door. Even now, dude's still thinking about his public image. He finds Robotnik and Grimer trying to start up a backup generator, which the Hedgehog promptly overloads and destroys. I can't tell you how strange it was to see Citadel Robotnik, a structure that had symbolized Robotnik's dictatorship for so long, finally explode in spectacular fashion. And that's it. Robotnik's been kicked to the curb, every single one of his badniks has been deactivated, his Citadel destroyed, he has nothing. Mobius is finally free, and as our heroes celebrate, the egg-shaped genius bitterly vows to one day get his revenge. Alright, so first the positives. Hot damn, the artwork in this issue is 10 out of 10, pretty much the entire way through. Richard Elson, MVP of the series, my earliest and arguably strongest artistic influence, and all around really nice guy, opens the festivities with eye-popping, rich, saturated colours. He has a certain way of drawing these simple characters in a really expressive manner, packing lots of detail into materials like gloves and shoes. There are also some really smart decisions, like colouring bystanders in a single tone so our eyes are drawn to the main characters at all times. Elson passes the baton to the late, great Nigel Dobbin. That first panel, the softer application on the Emerald Hill folk in the background, both taking them out of focus and implying smoke from the machine going up at the same time, is just, oh, chef's kiss, so good. And their faces, they are going to get Robotnik for what he did to them. I'd have maybe liked some more backgrounds, and his treatment of Sonic feels slightly off, especially in the face, but this guy was the Knuckles artist. No one drew our favourite Echidna like he did, and you could see he absolutely went for it with a fun and expressive set of pages here. Next up are Lou Stringer on writing duties, Roberto Corona on art, and John Burns on colours. I've got to say, the switch from Nigel's writing to Lou's is so seamless that I never actually noticed it prior to this review. Likewise, Corona was a very underrated artist in Sonic the Comic, and he's not talked about anywhere near enough. Look at the detail in this first panel. Sonic's goofy, overplayed, hey, look what the cat dragged in act is one thing, but then there's the crowd. Check out this one dude in green just laughing his ass off. He's having a great time. There's a real sense of place and energy in the artwork. I mean, this is just Corona's A-game throughout. You can really feel Sonic's frustrations, focus, and determination by the end. We get to see a complete shift in the Hedgehog's mood. Really fantastic stuff. Lou carries on writing while Nigel Kitching picks up art duties. Yeah, Nigel wasn't just a writer. I've seen his pages get clowned on from fans for being too simple and chunky, but there's a real charm to them. Kitching's art just screams fun to me, and that's perfectly suited to seeing Sonic finally cap things off. Alright, time to address the bad. I think this issue ditched the villain it had been building up to, Supersonic, in favour of finally ousting Robotnik. The end product is still well paced, don't get me wrong, but when you consider Robotnik's captured halfway through, you start to wonder if we could have had a proper face-off with Supersonic. During the fight, Sonic could find out Robotnik's retreated to his base and is trying to activate the backup generator. You then have the second half be all of the Freedom Fighters storming the castle together. I'm also not a massive fan of the over-reliance on Sonic here. This isn't Forces. All of these characters have proven themselves to be more than capable of holding their own time and time again over the previous 100 issues. Yet they all have to get beaten at the same time by threats they've overcome before in order for Sonic and the electromagnetic pulse to come save the day. Speaking of, it's well established in the lead-in issues that the pulse will cause hospitals to fail and planes to fall from the skies. Where is that chaos on Mobius? Sure, most machines on Mobius are Robotnik's badniks, but surely they have hospitals and planes too. Sonic's decision must have killed hundreds, if not thousands of Mobians. Says a 32-year-old man reading a comic written for 8-year-olds. Some people might argue this comic doesn't stand up on its own, that it's only a groundbreaking epic in the context of the issues and stories leading up to it. Yeah, that's sort of the point. That's one of the reasons this worked. While this didn't. There's also, and I feel kind of weird holding this against issue 100 itself, how the series, in my opinion, kind of went downhill a little immediately after this. There was a sense the creative team didn't know what to do next, how to establish a new threat and status quo that would be as interesting or as engaging as Robotnik's reign. For me, the series definitely peaked here. That's not to say we didn't get good stories after issue 100, or that we didn't have some stinkers of bad issues before this, but the book definitely stumbled and lost its momentum for a while. They did try another issue where one story ran through the entire thing, but maybe that's a story for another day. If it wasn't obvious enough already, I would highly recommend for all of you to check out this series whichever way you can. Sadly, it's not in print anymore. I'm not sure what the issue is, if certain parties just aren't interested, but I would love to get some trade paperbacks of these. I mean, I would buy them in a heartbeat, and I'm pretty sure there's a market out there for that beyond just me. In the meantime, the best I can do is continue shining a spotlight on these books. Hopefully they're well received, and I can keep highlighting some of my other favourite issues and arcs for you. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons, Chuckleson and Crow, for their continued support, as well as you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend, and maybe leave a comment down below with your favourite moment from a Sonic comic.